Now, shall we do this? Let's. Okay. Welcome to Potential Podcast with Tracy Lee. This is episode. I always forget. If you listen to my podcast, you already know I have forgotten which episode this is. Aha, there we go. It is episode 36 if you count the trailer, 35 if you do not. My word, there are 35 episodes of this on the internet. How great is that? I know I say that every time, but like, it's a real thing, dude. Like, I feel like I am consistent just simply because of the fact that I get threatened every 2 months. So like, I have no choice but to be consistent. But like, I'm not consistent in like a consistency kind of way. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, hi. Oh, that's what I did. I switched on my reverb, right? And that was a stupid decision because now I'm hearing myself in echo, which is very dumb. Like, that was not a good idea. Anyway, okay. So today we are proceeding with our series in the 7 deadly sins. We have 2 sins left, believe it or not. And I'm actually thinking, while I'm in this beautifully productive place that I'm in mentally, to record both of them. Like, because also I'm so close to the end of a series that I've been saying I'm going to finish for forever and a day. And like, look at us, guys. We made it. You know what I'm saying? We freaking made it. Okay. Anyway, so today we are going to be unpacking greed. I just wanted noted. So the reason it takes me so long to record pod episodes is because the issue is it's finding a balance between having inspiration and also having the energy to like actually create. Do you know what I'm saying? Because the problem is obviously with most creators. Well, I mean, the really famous ones just do it as a full-time job, but like, I have to maintain a full life that has nothing to do with this podcast. Do you know what I mean? And then I have to go and find the energy to be this girl as well. Now, I note that obviously the core of this podcast was always the fact that I just needed to exist because it continuously encourages me that there is more and you can do more. Just keep going, do you know? So, that's why I'm grateful to you for listening. Because this is truly a passion project. Even though sometimes my passion lacks, and hence the irregularity of the posting of this podcast. I create this because I needed something to exist that made me feel like I was putting something out there creatively on a regular basis. Even though like I have to be bullied into creating my own content, which is insane, right? But I don't know, it's weird. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. We will address that probably, and maybe I don't even know if it is a sloth thing. Anyway, whatever. So let's jump into greed. So if you have listened to the previous episodes, I did change format, I think about 2 episodes ago, where me and ChatGPT, my producer, and co-writer, because, you know, Chatty did things, had decided to take a different direction. This was my idea, not Chatty's, so just keep that in mind. This was my idea. I just made ChatGPT do the writing because I obviously needed someone else's brain, so to speak, to unpack the things I needed. But what I've pretty much done is we've changed the structure to doing a little bit of background, a little bit of like some views, whatever, and like a little bit of context of what it is that the sin is. And then we talk about how it shows up today, like in the current world we live in. And then we jump into some listener letters. I've decided to go with 4 listener letters today. And yeah, man. So as I say, I usually write my prompt to ChatGPT and then I kind of just let it write. I let it write and then I copy paste it. I don't read before recording, just simply because obviously we want my reactions to be as fresh as possible. So I don't know what my listener letters are going to say. The only things I do read is obviously the background research, as well as how it shows up today, because I do make slight tweaks there and just additions of information. Now, with greed, I just wanted noted that greed, the last two sins, and the reason probably it's taken me as long, other than the just simple fact that, like, as a creator, you just have to find the ness to want to create, is these are difficult ones. Greed would seem easy, right? But I was like, I don't want us to just talk about, oh my gosh, wanting too much money. Like, that's boring. Do you know what I mean? I was like, no, I need more. And the funny thing is, the reoccurring thing that has been playing through my mind over the past month or so, however long it's been since I've last recorded these episodes, has been greed. Well, in my personal context, let's talk about me. In my personal context, how has been my greed in wanting and expecting more in the context of dating. We will address that. Don't worry, I'm not just opening a can of worms and not like addressing what it is. It's just, I need to give you a little bit of context of where my brain is at for myself in terms of this sin. And like also just reminding me to say it so that I can loop back to it. Obviously, we're going to go through my script and go on the journey that the script takes me on. But yeah, I feel like that is something that has been playing on my mind consistently, and the thing that, you know, when you're inspired and the thoughts that stay in your brain are the ones that really do need to be expressed. So anyway, let's first jump in and do a little bit of background, shall we? Okay. So what is greed really? So greed, also called avarice, guys, like, I'm bummed that avarice means greed, because that is a beautiful word. Avarice. Imagine having a child named Avarice. Huh? Anyway, sorry. Is traditionally defined as an inordinate desire for more, whether it be wealth, power, or possessions, beyond what is needed. Okay. So in Christianity, greed isn't having wealth. It is clinging to it, hoarding it, or letting it distort your relationship with others and with God. So wanting more and letting that more stand in the way. Okay. And wealth. Obviously, I think in the Christian context, this is my opinion. I don't think it's just wealth of like money necessarily, but I think it's wealth of resources. And resources can obviously play out in many ways. Key distinction. Ambition is striving to build, while greed is refusing to let go. So, ambition is striving to make more happen, being happy with what you've got, but making more happen. And I think, so the reason I'm about to go into the next section is I read this and then I pretty much said I need more, because one of the big things that has played through my mind, as well as the minds of many of my friends, is we are at that age where you want to pursue, you want to build, you want to do great and big things with your life. But as a Christian, you also are taught to be content. So where is that line? And pretty much what I did was then I prompted Dearest Chatty to give me a little background on the difference between contentment and ambition. Because ambition and greed can become quite synonymous. They can become like quarter two. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, okay, what's the story? And greed is more about refusing to let go of what you've, like, not letting resources flow through your life naturally, I think. And this is me talking. This is not from ChatGPT. That's what I'm getting from all of this. But maybe my thought is what it is. Anyway, let's jump into the key distinction between contentment and ambition. So contentment is peace with what you have, not passivity. Come on. It says, what I have is enough for my worth to be secure. Contentment allows growth without desperation. It is rooted in gratitude, trust, and presence. Contentment doesn't kill desire, it kills anxiety. Yeah? 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 Okay. Ambition is the desire to build, improve, or create more. It says, I believe something better is possible. Healthy ambition is future focused, but not self-worth dependent. It can coexist with contentment. Ambition asks, what could be? Contentment answers, who I am is already enough. And I think probably the interesting thing about this is the problem is all of these like statements are so quarter to the cutoff. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I can see how this can become a little shaky because as Chatty has written here, what could be? And contentment answers, who I am is already enough. Now, who I am is already enough means stop, right? That's what your mental brain, wow, I am a smarty pants, aren't I? Anyway, what your mental brain says, right? Who I am is already enough means good, stop. You know what I mean? Like, that's it, we're done. And that ain't it. Who I am is already enough is a statement that you use as the basis for what could be. Do you get me? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Do you know what I'm saying? This is me unpacking what's been given here. Because what I do generally with what ChatGPT writes is I take it and I process it. That's my job here. I've got a producer and writer. Okay. I'm here to host. I'm processing as a human because obviously my producer and writer is a machine. So through my processed human mind, let's go through that one more time. So contentment says, who I am is already enough, right? But you can still believe something better is possible. You could still believe there is more, right? But that more isn't saying that what you have has no value. And I think that's the problem, is as also a 0 to 100 goal. I've said this in many of my episodes before. We have a tendency of thinking it's one or the other, and it might not be one or the other. You can be content. You can be happy with what you've got. And contentment can also mean that you are done, but you cannot combo them together. Contentment can say, yes, that's it. I am content and I am happy to stop here. Or I am content with what I have. I am happy with what I have. I'm good. But I can also see how it could be better. And in that seeing how it could be better, it does not discount what you've already got. The enough that you have already got. Do you get me? And I think that's something I'm also just unpacking for myself. But yes, contentment it allows growth without desperation, while ambition is future focused without self-worth is future focused but not self-worth dependent. Okay? So the enough that you've got doesn't change simply because you see better. And this is the issue, the problem is we think that you need to hate what you got to want better. No. You can just want better. It does not mean that what you've got is any less than, so to speak. Well, it is technically less than because you're saying the word better, but you know what I'm saying? Like, growth does not discount where you have come so far. Because by that concept, you would have to destroy all the things you've already been to become the new version of yourself. And by that same concept, you would be saying that all of the work you've already done is useless. And that isn't true. All of the work you've already done is useful. It's done a lot. If anything, it has contributed to you being able to imagine better. You dig? You dig? You dig. Anyway, so yeah. Now, this is the interesting part, where greed slips in between contentment and ambition. Greed enters when ambition becomes identity dependent. I'm only as valuable as my output. Growth is driven by fear of lack rather than vision. Yeah, it's a D. Can write. More is never allowed to arrive. So, greed is never feeling full. Never. Actually, greed is just a lack of contentment. TBH. Like, greed is a lack of content. Like, you are never content. Never content. Like, you never fully recognize what you have as being good enough. And I do feel that to truly build as a person, and this is obviously, as we know, guys, these are things that I organize in my own brain as I talk out loud. So I need to also learn these things. But to truly build as a person, you need to fully recognize what you've already got. Do you know? And greed is like, it's more a fear of lack rather than vision. And that is interesting because you can have a vision based on what you've got. Yeah. See what I did there? What's the name of my podcast, friends? But yes, seeing potential for more does not discount what you already have. I didn't realize this was all going to load back to my podcast, but I like the link and how it came to us. Look at God. Anyway, so yes, there's a lot more to unpack there, but we do have to move on to the next things. Also, we need to talk about the thing that I started the podcast with. So next up, we have, how does greed show up in today, the today of things, the modern context? So there are the obvious places. Obviously, there is corporate corporate profiteering, extreme wealth gaps, exploitative labor, influencer culture, monetizing everything, even vulnerability. Can we talk about the people who set up a camera to cry? I mean, hustle culture, more, faster, now as a lifestyle, which is also a very big thing in Korea. I mean, I haven't fully experienced it because I live in a beachside town where everyone is hella relaxed, but it is a very prevalent thing in this country. The modern glow up of greed is where it gets interesting. Anyway, greed in places you wouldn't expect. Now, this is an actual prompt I asked for. I said, please don't just give me the usual places. I want to see other spaces where greed shows up where you wouldn't expect it. So the first one we got is self-improvement and wellness. Now, optimize everything culture. So never being satisfied with who you are. Greed for self-maximization, more productivity, more healing, more growth, but never rest. Hoarding knowledge without embodiment. Courses, books, certifications, all these things. Growth becomes greedy when it's driven by fear of not being enough. We've already talked about this. It's the contentment versus ambition. Yeah, I think this is a big one. But this also speaks to sloth, which is its own, Go back to my sloth episode. Honestly, one of my best episodes, if I'm honest with you, bro. Sloth, I was cooking with gas there. Anyway, relationships and dating. Greed for optionality, keeping people on the bench just in case. Dating apps reward accumulation, matches, attention, not commitment. Emotional greed, wanting intimacy without responsibility. I want you, but I also want my freedom, my options, and zero inconvenience. Don't read me for filth. Remember the thing I said we needed to talk about, guys? Anyway, we're going to loop back to that one. Spiritual spaces, prosperity theology, blessing equated with material accumulation, spiritual greed, wanting God's benefits without transformation, churches competing for attendance, influence, and aesthetic. Even faith can be monetized if we are not careful. Chitty man. Next one. Minimalism and aesthetics. Yes, even this. Simple living as a status symbol. Greed disguised as taste or curation. Owning fewer things, but only the right expensive things. Ooh. Interesting. So, just because you don't got lots of stuff, don't mean you ain't greedy. Emotional and psychological greed. Wanting constant validation, reassurance, emotional labor from others. Being full but still consuming. Ooh. Oh, okay. Being full but still consuming. So we all, I think, have at some point met an emotional vampire. And I think that that's what emotional and psychological greed is. Wanting all of these things and being filled but still consuming. Oof, jeez. Oof, jeez. That's... Okay. I'm going to move relationships and dating to the end because we do need to address some things. You know what I'm saying? Oof. Not Chetty reading me for filth on my own podcast. Lord. Anyway. All right, guys. So, before we jump into speaking about my stuff, I want us to do the listener letters. Literally, I asked for 4 letters written by people with different contexts, different ideas. These are obviously like, not stereotypes. What's the word? You know when, you know what I mean, bruh. I literally just said create a version of this type of person. Obviously, these are not real people. They were created by ChatGPT. But obviously, ChatGPT has taken from different sources to create a personality. You know what? We've done this little letter thing before. Let's not overthink it. I love how I'm acting as if I'm arguing with someone. Anyway. All right. So our first letter is from Ethan, 36, a white man, a startup founder in Austin, Texas. Let's read what Ethan says. Hi, I'm Ethan, 36. I run a tech startup in Austin. Honestly, I think greed gets unfairly demonized. Wanting more is how innovation happens. Nobody builds something great by being content with mediocrity. My drive to scale, to earn, to win isn't about hoarding. It's about proving what's possible. If I'm honest, greed is just ambition with bad PR. The real problem isn't wanting more. It's people who lack discipline and direction. So my question is, if everyone stopped wanting more, would the world just stagnate? Okay, Ethan. Now, I think Ethan has the same problem we all have, where we don't understand the both and of things, where the issue is ambition and greed. Yeah, like greed is just ambition with bad PR. I don't think that's true. I don't think that we should say ambition and greed live in the same box. There's a reason the words exist separately. And this is exactly what I addressed at the beginning of the podcast and why I asked the prompt I asked for ChatGPT to help me with, is we have to wrap our minds around the fact that greed is exactly that. It's wanting more. It's hoarding. And having a growth mindset isn't necessarily like it's not synonymous, because growth does require you to let go of things. Let's remember that. For you to grow, you have to let go of things that do no longer serve your path or your growth. And I don't think, so the question he asked is, if everyone stopped wanting more, would the world just stagnate? I don't know. The world would stagnate if everyone stopped wanting more, but the question maybe needs to be reframed. Like, let's talk about if everybody was greedy, like everybody, you know what I mean? Like the question and the greed element aren't aligned based on where we are going in my version of this discussion, in my thoughts. And if people did stop wanting more, the world would stagnate. It's as simple as that. But wanting more is ambition. It's not greed. It's just wanting more. I mean, case in point, let's not even go too big. Wanting more is as small as a baby wanting to walk. That baby isn't being greedy. That baby is just growing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, a baby wanting to walk is the desire to walk. Like, you see what I mean? Like, we have to boil these things down to their very simplest terms for them to kind of separate themselves the way they need to, I feel. Anyway, next letter. That was a good one. Okay, letter B. Zanele, 29, a black South African woman. She's a community organizer. Here's her letter. Hello, my name is Zanele. I'm 29, based in Johannesburg. I work in community development. From where I stand, greed isn't theoretical, it's structural. It looks like executives earning in a month what families earn in a lifetime. Greed is not just personal, it's baked into systems that reward accumulation over care. When resources are hoarded, someone else goes without. I don't think greed is neutral. I think it numbs people to suffering. My question is, at what point does personal success become collective harm? Zanele. Ooh! Ooh! Shemchetti can write. At what point does personal success become collective harm? Now, this goes to just addressing the billionaires of the world and the fact that there are people who are going hungry in the world, while there are people who have more money than they could ever know what to do with. How does that balance? And because I think the view that we forget or maybe don't address is the fact that someone having that much does not mean that they are not hurting someone else, type of vibe. And this is something I recently learned myself, so I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm an expert. But someone just gave me a little bit of context and a little bit of it's not just context, a little bit of background on how it is that billionaires cannot be billionaires without someone getting hurt in the process of them being that wealthy, type of vibe. You can't be that rich. So something weird happened. Sorry, there's going to be a weird cut, but I'm not going to try and weirdly edit this. We're just going to go with it. At some point, there was a little bit of an echo there, friends. I don't know what was going on. Anyway, now, getting back to the chat. Anyway, so I was saying, somewhere along the lines, for someone to be that wealthy, someone needs to get hurt. And, I was like, yo, because that type of wealth accumulation means that you are in different industries, you are touching different things. There has to be an impact to your wealth. And I was like, damn, son. And it could be anything from environmental, it could be direct labor, it could be the Amazon dude, Jeff Bezos. People have truly just demonized that man. I'm not going to call him a poor man because he's literally not that man. Because on some, shame. Jeffy, Amazon is Amazon. But, something actually occurred to me yesterday. I was thinking about how, because I love to watch a little bit of a comedy stand-up clip on YouTube. It's kind of my thing. I like to watch them when I shower, actually. It's a thing I do, just simply because it's a weird way to decompress my brain. Also, I love how comedians tell stories. It's gorgeous. Anyway, sorry, got distracted. Coming back, and I thought about how all of these American comedians hate Donald Trump, and obviously don't we all? But dislike this man and all of that stuff. And I just thought about the fact that you all live in a country and you are currently producing content that is encouraging his economy. Do you get me? Because at some point you have to also understand that he is the president of the country, which means that the content you are creating is directly affecting him and supporting his administration. Do you think? Isn't that sorry, I just needed to say that out loud. Anyway, but yeah, hoarding because someone might be struggling. Oof, that's a deep one. Joe? That is an interesting one. I actually never, like, I've thought about it, but I've never thought about it, you know? Anyway, okay, next letter. Hiroshi, 45, Japanese, corporate middle manager in Tokyo. Hello, I'm Hiroshi, 45, working in Tokyo. In Japan, greed isn't loud, it's quiet. It looks like loyalty to a company that never loves you back. People give everything for stability, status, and security. I see greed not as excess, but as fear. Fear of falling behind, fear of dishonor, fear of scarcity. Many people I know are not chasing luxury, they're chasing safety. Is that greed or survival? I wonder if greed should be judged differently depending on context. I think Hiroshi pretty much answered his own question there, bro. I don't know if that's greed. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't see that as greed. Granted, falling behind, fear of dishonor, fear of scarcity, it is a thing where people do end up clawing on and hoarding more things simply because of that fear of falling behind, fear of dishonor, fear of scarcity. Many people are not chasing luxury, they're chasing safety. I do think that, context really does affect things now, doesn't it? Because, I mean, like Zanele's letter spoke to two contexts. She was talking about South Africa, but I was talking about America. Like, that applies in both spaces. And I think Austin speaks to something as well there. But, like, Hiroshi speaks to something even a little bit more unique, where we're speaking in the Asian context. This thing keeps screwing with my recordings. Anyway, now we're speaking into the Asian context, where, like, there is so much tied to status and, like, where you are in life, etc. Like, that's a big portion of just how people are. It does not necessarily not make it greed. It's just context is important. So that is something to think about. Okay. Next letter. Camila, 34, Latina, wellness coach and influencer in Miami. Hi, I'm Camila. I love that I chose to read her name that way. She could be Camilla, but I like Camila better. Okay. Hi, I'm Camila, 34, a wellness coach and content creator. I used to think greed was about money. Now I think it's about never being satisfied. I see greed in wellness spaces all the time. More healing, more certifications, more retreats, more aesthetic lives. People consuming peace instead of practicing it. I've caught myself turning healing into a brand. So here's my uncomfortable question. Where does self-investment cross into self-obsession? Oh! Damn! Okay, Camille, asking the hard questions at the end of the podcast. Damn. Now this is actually a big question that I personally have struggled with, simply because I think I've had this conversation at some point on one of these episodes where I've had issues with separating selfishness and self-care. And where the line is drawn. And I think I have actually addressed this somewhere on one of these episodes. But, like, when does self-investment cross into self-obsession? Jameson. That's such a good question. What would my answer be, Tracy? Stop saying it's a good question. What's the answer? Well, my answer, obviously. I'm not a therapist. The line is so thin between the two. I find personally, please feel free to, argue against what I've said here. The line is so thin because there is a level of, I think also, let's keep in mind that there are negative connotations to some words that there might not need to be, like self-involvement. Do you know what I mean? Like being just invested in what's going on with yourself. And I'm like, but someone saying you're so self-involved. It's like, you know what I'm saying? You're your own little world. But then I'm also of the opinion that in the process of all of this, you can go to the other side of the spectrum where you become so disconnected from yourself in an effort to not be self-involved, selfish, self-obsessed and all of that stuff, that you lose yourself in the waves of being outwardly focused, forgetting that you are the main character of your story, because you are. Like, it's the truth. You are the person living your life. You are the one in your body. Do you get me? Like, you can't run away from that. There is a level of self-involvement that is required for survival. There's a level of self-care. There's a level of self-investment that is required for you to exist. Let alone achieve, let alone gain resources, but just exist. And this is actually, interestingly enough, this is a beautiful segue into the story I wanted to tell, as well as where I'm at when it comes to greed, actually. So this actually works quite nicely. Me coming to this country, and obviously if you've been listening to my podcast, you know a lot of this, so I don't know what I'm repeating. But I came to Korea because I needed a change. I needed to do some introspection. I needed to reflect. I needed to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I needed to be outside of my comfort zone, outside of my bubble, to do that properly. Now, as much as I've loved this experience, I've enjoyed this, I am a fish out of water in this country. I recognize and I acknowledge that. And also, because of where I live in this country, it also just, it's a little bit more stark. It's a little bit more like obvious in your face, because I don't live in a part of the country that has all of the things that like make life foreigner friendly. I am very much a foreigner where I live type of vibe. And as a result of that, it becomes just a running thing for me that, like, my life don't play that way. You know what I mean? Like, my life, she don't play that. You know what I mean? So anyway, sorry, I got a little distracted by my own thoughts there. Anyway, so I took this year off from my life, so to speak, even though this is my life also as well, to figure out what's next, to figure out what I want to do next, because I realized that I'm at a place where I need to start making big moves, big changes, if I want the next chapter of my life to look a little bit more like what I want it to look like. And I don't want to obviously just be like, oh my gosh, I'm so selfless and blah, blah, blah. But there was a lot of my life that was for others, including a future version of myself. Like, I think I addressed that in one of the episodes at some point, not in the series. And I needed to be more present. I needed to figure out what this version of me right now needs. And then from that, figure out what's next. And that's kind of what I've managed to do, thank God. This year off has been really good for me. The one nice thing about living in the middle of nowhere is the fact that I exist for no one but myself. It's Saturday. I could be doing things. I could be going places. I could. And I'm doing none of it. I'm literally sitting here on my floor bed, because it's winter and it's -5 outside, and the floor is the hottest and warmest part of a Korean home because of heating. So I sleep on the floor because it just makes most sense. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm sitting here on my floor bed, truly just looking homeless. And this is the most at peace I have been in a very long time. Truly. Granted, I'm going home in a few weeks, which I'm very excited about. Oh my gosh. I miss my people. I miss not being a fish out of water. I miss being a fishy that swims with other fishies. Anyway, sorry. Getting distracted there. So, yeah. Self-investment versus self-obsession. It's a good one. I'm going to think about that one, bruh. I don't think I can fully answer that. Now, let's get to story time, everyone. The reason. Okay, I have enough minutes to tell my story. Okay, so let me get comfy. Let me get comfortable. Let me get comfortable and talk about how greed has been something I wanted to address for myself. Yo, Tracy, what have you done? Oh, no. So, I wanted to talk about greed in the context of relationships and dating because I recently decided to get involved with the online dating scene. And the reason I decided to do this is because meeting someone organically would be easier if I lived in a different part of Korea. One, I am a black woman in Korea. So I would have to be... Do you know what I mean? Like, I would have to exist, like, in a different part of Korea for this to just be normal and easy. But because I don't, online dating is probably the best method to meeting somebody, in my context specifically. So, I recently got involved on the online dating spectrum of things. Now, something interesting that has happened as a result of this. Also, I started a podcast with my friend Chilala. We are live. It's a video podcast, which is really cool. It's called I Was Thinking. It's really cute. We love it. We're attached to it. So anyway, so we started a podcast and we did an episode about dating and standards and just how my views have changed. And I think this all links to what I just spoke about in terms of what I've done for this year. So don't just think I'm jumping around. But this year has revealed a lot to me. Also, you were all there when I did Lust, where I was just horn dogging on a microphone. And Lust and Envy probably spoke to this quite a bit. But the really, truly interesting thing is when I did Lust and Envy, I wasn't on the online dating scene. I hadn't really started like looking for a partner or anything like that. And now where I'm at is the really curious and interesting thing. And I said this to my friend once, which was interesting, is I said, I am at the age and time that a normal everyday person would allow desperation to drive their actions. You know, like desperation would be the way I make my decisions. Desperation would determine my standards. Desperation would determine how I say, what I do, I say yes or no to, or lack of say no to, TBH. But the interesting thing that has happened... Oh, also, my context. Let's keep in mind, I am not in my market. Like, I'm not in a space where I am the number one option on the menu. Let's remember that. Keeping in mind as well that it's been a scientifically proven fact that on online dating, there are two specific undesirable groups. That's Asian men and black women. Now, you would think in this context we would just get together, but no, I'm also in a space where Asian men are dating Asian women who want Asian men. So it works out. So they've been sorted out in this context, but I haven't. So I've also just added an extra layer of just inconvenience to choosing to start dating. Anyway, so that being said, that would also add to the little bucket of desperation, right? Right? Okay. Now, the really curious thing is I shared on that other podcast how I had a life plan and how it was all supposed to come together and all of that stuff. And I am technically so past my life plan in terms of marriage and kids that it's hilarious. I don't even can to know. Anyway, I have plans, I have dreams, there are things I really still want to achieve, and I still have hope, and I still want all of those things. But the curious thing is, you would think with all of this desire, having heard envy, having heard lust, having heard my struggles, I would accept a lot less and be happy about it. And guess what? I'm not. Which is by far probably the scariest thing I've ever done. It's weird. I came to a space where my standards should be at their lowest to have my highest standards. And the reason this works in the greed episode is because a part of me feels greedy. A part of me feels like I'm demanding too much. A part of me, because I still have imposter syndrome, you know what I'm saying? I still have the reality of the fact that in wanting more, in wanting all the things I want and maintaining all the standards I want to maintain, I may end up alone. Recording another lust episode down the line. If you get it, you get it. Anyway, I may end up alone. So, am I greedy for maintaining my standards? And I want to say no. And the reason I say this is because of contentment. I am content with what I have. I am happy with what I have. I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with myself for the first time in a very long time. There are things that could be better. Ambition. There are things that could be better. But I'm happy. And wow, look at this all coming full circle. Please understand, I'm having these realizations as I record this, guys. This is not me. This is me just thinking and talking at the same time. So we're going on this journey together. But I like who I am. I like what I've achieved. I like what I'm doing. I like where I'm going. I like what I've done for myself. Like, there's so much that I connect to from a me perspective about me. And I think screwing with myself, or like lowering my standards, would be an insult to the girl who actually walked in here in the first place wanting to date. Do you know what I mean? Like, lowering my standards and playing small or changing my requirements would actually be counter to the female who walked in here dating in the first place. Because you have to be fully you to want to date someone else. And I think in this mission of all of this, I've had to make some really tough decisions. One of which being, yeah, guys, this is going to be a 2-episoder. So there's going to be a part 1 and a part 2. But this is important. And I'm actually just using you as a way to work through this. One of which being that for me, and you could say maybe this is the desperation element, which is interesting because the desperation is actually helping me make much clearer decisions. Like, in my desperation and wanting for marriage and children, I have also realized that I don't have the time to waste on someone who isn't what I need them to be. And keep in mind, I'm not talking like super, like one would think based on what I'm saying, oh my gosh, I need someone with a 6-figure salary and blah. No, it's more the fact that, are you mentally at a place to handle all that I come with? And not just all of my personality and all of that stuff, but I'm talking about all that I come with in terms of things I've achieved, work I've done, places I've been, mentally and physically. I've done the work of becoming me. And that girl deserves better. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying better than you. I'm just saying she deserves the best that I can give her. Now, keep this in mind. Like I said, my standards are not necessarily like, because one would think after I say all of this, I'm becoming sister friend girl that is like, oh my gosh, you need to be wealthy. And no. I need you to be at a place where you can appreciate when I need you to have faith in God. Do you know what I'm saying? I've worked very hard to work on my relationship with God, especially in the past year. Like, it's me and God have rocked for a year. Like, we've gone back and forth. You know what I'm saying? We've had some chats, and I've asked some questions and been like, do you know what I'm saying? Me and God have really gone at it and come out on the other side having a better relationship. I, on a daily basis, sit with like God and have conversations. I don't know if I can be in a relationship with someone who completely does not understand that. It's a big portion of who I am. Part of the basis of who I am, you know? So that's faith. Let's start there. Then let's flow into I've had so much life experience. I've done so much. I've built a career. In the process of building another, I have managed to finance and move myself to another country, survive in another country, and not just a convenient portion of another country, but like I have managed to exist in a completely different context to my own and thrive. That's the type of growth I've pushed myself to. Can you recognize that and appreciate that's the type of girl I am? I am willing. I wasn't for a very long time, but I am now at a place where I am willing to walk away from things that aren't serving me, even if I have to take a hit. That's where I'm at, coming all the way back to this chat and what triggered me linking this to the greed episode. There are so many other things I could say. This is not about me building my dating profile or talking to my future husband. This is more just it's been an interesting journey. Also, oh yes, sorry. Now this is where it's a funny little story that I wanted to share. So I shared this on the other podcast, I was talking to someone and he seemed like a perfectly great guy. Honestly, like on paper, what I was looking for. And for those who've been listening for a while, you know that I've always said that I would work in... Actually, no, this is not an arranged marriage thing. This is something else. But like, you know, I'm very pragmatic and I feel I'm more of a logical relationship type of thing. But interestingly enough, I was talking to this nice man who logically on paper is everything I am looking for. Right? Everything I'm looking for. And I felt nothing. I felt none of the excitement or the wah that, you know, would make me want to lock in and make this person mine. And I walked away as a result. I did not ghost because I don't do that. I sent a message and I said I couldn't do this. And that plagued me for like 2 weeks, guys. 2 weeks. I sat for like 2.5, actually, no, longer than 2 weeks, actually. I think about 3 weeks, where I sat there and I'm like, Tracy, this is everything you've wanted. At the right timing. This could work out exactly. Like, I'm talking faith, you know, got his life together. Like, it was all working the way it needed to. But I felt nothing. And that's when I realized that the one thing that I probably had let go in lieu of not being greedy was wanting to have that excitement, the butterflies, the desire for someone. I was like, it's okay. That can grow. You know what I mean? Like, It is what it is. But I realized that I still need to want you. Somewhat. You know? I'm still figuring this out, guys. This is not a figured out thing. Like I said, I'm thinking and talking at the same time, yeah. But like, it hit me that as it is, I thought I was being greedy, just requiring quite a bit from a man whose type I am not. Or like from a dating pool that technically don't want me. Do you know what I'm saying? But now I'm adding on to that, yeah, but I need to want you. Like, actually want you. So you wanting me is not enough. I need to want you back. Like, want you. Not like want you in terms of all the other things that evaluate a relationship. But like, actually, like, you know, not even just be physically attracted to you, but like, want you. And that is a growth for me. And let me explain. In my last relationship, and probably my only serious relationship, which says a lot, I was dating him because I liked the idea of him, but he was also dating me because he liked the idea of me, so, you know, it balanced. But, like, I think that was the real me logic dating, being like, I like the idea of you, so therefore this should work. But I think maybe it's taken me, when did we break up? 2020? No, 2021? Yeah, we broke up in 2021. Yeah, it's taken me, how many, 2021, we're in 2024, we're in 2026 now. It's taken me just under 4 years to come to a full circle of realizing that you actually need to be someone I like. You can't just be someone. Which is insane. That feels greedy to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, I could date anyone. I could marry anyone. I've said this before. I don't know where, but I've probably said it somewhere before. But like, just like, what? Guys, this journey is, it's a journey. Yeah. I think I'm gonna loop back to the me dating thing. I think that's probably its own episode. It really is. I think let's finish the series and then we'll loop back to that guy. But yeah, I like that one-liner. I'm gonna read that one more time so that we can close off this episode. Contentment is being satisfied without being stagnant. Ambition is striving without being starved. Greed is when neither is ever enough. These all can be used in so many different contexts. I use them in my little departure on the side there, that little bit of story time at the end of our episode. Honestly, greed is bad, and I don't think there's ever a context where greed isn't bad. I think where we need to be careful is not understanding what greed is and what greed isn't. Greed is not ambition. Ambition is not greed. Ambition is wanting better. Ambition and contentment can coexist. Greed, ambition and contentment cannot. And I think you just need to sit down for yourself, dearest listener, and figure out where your lines are drawn. I think that is what it is you need to know where your lines are drawn. At what point are you hoarding? At what point are you finding your worth in your resources? At what point is it desperation as opposed to like being happy with what you've got, but still seeing how it could be better? Things like that. That being said, this episode was going a one way and then it went a different way. The thing is, I knew when I started with the dating story that it was going to go a different direction. I didn't realize how much of my brain started unpacking itself, and then I was like, Tracy, you don't got time for this. Anyway, thank you for listening. I've actually really enjoyed doing this series. I've had a great time. This has been a potential podcast with Tracy Lee. I pray this podcast and I live up to our potential. Thanks for listening. I love you.